Hey buddies, welcome to AmassGames. My name is Simon. Today I'm bringing you my ranking of all of the pandemic games. That's every game that has come out. I have played all of them and I'll be now giving you this review from the worst one to the best one with all my opinions behind it. If you want to see further videos, please hit the notification and the subscribe button. Let me know via a thumbs up if you're enjoying the content and also comment in YouTube is best. Lastly, via the description on YouTube, you can support the channel via Patreon, over 2,500 posts to follow on Instagram, and also please join the discussion on Facebook. There is Linktree as well, so please do keep checking back there. There are occasionally competitions and they are time sensitive. And last but not least, there are various playlists such as this, which is going to go in there. There's numerous of these pandemic games available on the channel as well, so please do check them out. I've played over 280 different co-ops, and hopefully you'll find something of interest. So let's start off with the one which I think is worst. Now, none of these games are bad. This happens to be basically very similar to the game Fuse, which is by the same guy, Kane Klenko, or Kane Klenko. And it's interesting. It basically involves this ship and you're placing out dice. All these games are by Z-Man Games. I actually have met the founder. And no, it's not a bad game. It's a kind of a real-time game, and it's not bad at all, but I would give it 6 out of 10 compared to the other ones. Next up, we have Pandemic Hot Zone. This is the small box game. This is equal weight to some other games I give it a 7 out of 10 to. You can play Pandemic in under 15 minutes. It's very enjoyable. The fact that you're able to basically just play with 3 different cubes, get the Pandemic experience in a short period of time is brilliant. It's a smaller box. It's great to play. Great characters. Just as good is Fall of Rome. Now, lots of people give it a high rating, but for me, there's a slight imbalance going on here. The chaining effect is very puzzly. Still very enjoyable. It's an excellent designer, Paolo Mori, who I have played other games. You can find Augustus on the channel, and you'll find Caesar and Blitzkrieg coming to the channel very soon. Very interesting, but they can be with a ganging up effect on one of the opponents because it's you against them, which is very different to other pandemics. So something to be aware of in this particular version with these factions. It's very interesting how they've done it. Then we have Pandemic the Cure. So unlike the last game, which had a theme, that was one of the 3 themed games, got more to come. Interestingly about, I guess, Fall of Rome is ultimately the fact that Fall of Rome does have a Italian designer. Now this one is straight up by the designer itself, Matt Leacock, and it involves petri dishes and all kinds of other stuff going on. It's fine, but I must admit, very forgettable, involving dice as well. Contagion similar, obviously involving petri dishes. Nothing wrong at all with petri dishes. It's very important for solving contagions and pandemics. But for me, it didn't have the experience I was after, mainly involving that card and then how you're handling and managing that situation. Managing the situation is very key. Now, Rising Tide I didn't like as much initially. Trying to find the locations on the board, all these Dutch names, is very difficult. But using those pumping stations started to appeal to me on how I can plan. Planning is very important, I think, in the idea of a co-op. So that's what I found very interesting. And I think the dice in a game like Fall of Rome, again, wasn't a factor. But I was the 6th person in the UK to play it. I didn't want to play the first 5, just whilst I tried to understand it. Now, Reign of Cthulhu is an interesting one. I'm not a big fan of Cthulhu. There's a few games that I think are good, which have a Cthulhu theme. The loose-goosiness makes sense from a setting and a thematic and a mechanism point of view, but this one does work very well. The way you are going around the board, shooting stuff, is decent, so I do recommend this one. Next up, we have a great implementation of an IP. The intellectual property for World of Warcraft is great in this one. You can properly solo this game as well. You don't have to two-hand it. It works well. I personally do like the quests. Easy is too easy, normal is too easy, hard and hardcore are where it's all about. Hardcore is just bonkers. I don't know if you could ever do that one. But yes, it is based on a pandemic system. It doesn't have the word pandemic on it if you were to look on the BG entry, as you can see up the top left here. So trying to search for it is a bit harder, but it's a very interesting game, really well put together. I've played through all the different characters, all the different quests, and everything else to do with it, so it's very enjoyable. Very spiky pieces. I wish it weren't as spiky. Some people have said that it can be a bit too samey, those quests, but I personally think it works very well. And I think the dice work well in it too, so actually in this instance, dice are good. Next up, we're into a legacy game, Season 1. Now, some people give this the number 1, but for me, as great as it has been, I found it a bit too linear, which we'll talk about a bit more with the other ones. So next up, we've got Pandemic on the Brink. Now, hopefully tomorrow of all days, I'm playing the final one, which involves a bioterrorist. I have played 2 of the other 3 expansions. One of them involves having a 5th extra disease you have to deal with. Bioterrorist, I think it might be the best one. Very look forward to playing that. And they'll be wearing masks. Next up we have the original. Now I have played it on all the difficulty levels. I've even played it eventually on hard and winning it 7 times on hard in a row with this excellent player. And the key thing about that was the fact that when they spawn all these cubes, you're spawning them in one localized location so you can handle it better. Next up we have Hot Zone Europe. Now I was surprised how much I prefer it over the original. There isn't much of a difference whatsoever. In a way I don't like the characters as much, but maybe the European theme, just like Ticket to Ride, potentially. Maybe there's a bit more of a thing going on there. I don't like Ticket to Ride Europe. I think it's the worst of the Ticket rides. But in this instance, I think very much enjoyed Pandemic Hot Zone because in Europe, I get to experience characters I wouldn't normally play with. Maybe that's why. Next up, Pandemic Iberia, the highest rated of the Pandemics, typically, which isn't a legacy game. I don't know much about Jesus Torres Castro. I'll be looking up and checking more of his stuff out. It's a limited collector's edition. This idea of route building, though, building trains and stuff is really good, and I do highly recommend it. Very, very enjoyable. And next up, we have Pandemic Legacy Season 0, a phenomenal way they've actually implemented this and taken the best of all the other pandemics. Really enjoyable, great ways you're going about different stuff, passports and stuff like that. Really, really clever. No cubes, though, using agents. Really good idea. I highly recommend it, and definitely even start with this one initially, due to the story you'll pick up. And we've got in at number 1. Now, I know most people do not agree with it being Season 2 being the best, but other people do agree it's the best one in the sense that we would want to play it again. The way that you're building your own routes, for me, is really, really important. The way we've talked about that in Iberia, people do find it harder, but we lost Season 1, but I did win Season 2. I have played Season 2 with 2 different groups of different player counts as well. I look forward to playing it a third time as a player count of 2. I very much enjoy that planning aspect. It does take longer, but it's really great discussion to play. Well, that has been my, obviously, number, whatever it is, 16 odd to 1, and look forward to bringing you more videos, again, daily videos for the last 5 years. Please let me know your thoughts. Back to the table.